Think about the most ambitious person you know at work. The one who said yes to everything, every extra project, every stretch assignment, every promotion that came their way. They've got the title. They've got the salary that looks impressive when it comes up at dinner. They're doing everything you're supposed to do. Now think about whether they actually seem happy. Not LinkedIn happy, not blessed and grateful in the caption of their work anniversary post happy, actually happy. Because there's a version of that person, and maybe you know them or maybe you are them, who gets home at 7:45 p.m., eats whatever's standing over the sink because sitting down feels like too much, checks email one more time before bed, and then lies awake, doing math about whether this life they worked so hard to build is actually the life they wanted. The promotion came, the raise came, the title came, and somewhere in between all of that arriving, something else quietly left. This video is about what that something is, and more importantly, it's about the people who saw it coming, said no thank you to the promotion, and ended up in a completely different place 5 years later. A better place, a wealthier place, a place that's hard to explain to your parents but makes total sense once you see the math. My name is Nick, and I spend an unreasonable amount of time doing math that HR departments would prefer you never see. If you've ever felt like you're working harder every year and somehow getting further behind, make sure to subscribe, because that feeling has a very specific, very fixable explanation. And today we're going to break all of it down. Before we get into the numbers, let me be clear. This is not me telling you to stop caring or coast through your career. This is a completely honest accounting of what a promotion actually gets you versus what it costs you. Because most people do the salary math and stop there. The salary math, it turns out, is the least interesting part. Let's start with the most basic question. You get promoted from $80,000 to $110,000. What does that $30,000 raise actually put in your pocket? $30,000 sounds like a lot. It's a number that feels validating. It's a number worth celebrating at dinner. But here's what actually happens to it once the real world shows up uninvited. At $80,000, your federal income tax and FICA combined run about $14,890. Take home, roughly $65,110. Okay, now at $110,000, that federal burden climbs to around $23,785. Take home, about $86,215. So of the $30,000 raise, about $8,895 went directly to the federal government before you saw a single cent of it. And that's before your state government remembers you exist. In California, at another $2,790. In New York City, your combined marginal rate at $110,000 is over 41%. That $30,000 raise is now worth maybe $17,500 in actual take-home pay. So we haven't even gotten to the truly painful part yet. That painful part has a name: lifestyle inflation. And it is absolutely ruthless, not because people are irresponsible, but because it's almost biologically automatic. The average person spends somewhere between 65 and 85 cents of every new dollar they earn. We see more income, and our brains interpret it as permission. The slightly nicer apartment, the car that's a little newer, the restaurants that used to be a treat becoming just Tuesday. A Lending Club report found that 40% of Americans earning over $100,000 live paycheck to paycheck. Goldman Sachs in 2025 found that 40% of households earning over $500,000 still describe themselves as paycheck to paycheck, $500,000 a year, paycheck to paycheck. Read that sentence again and ask yourself whether the income is actually the variable that matters here. A raise without a savings plan is basically a larger bucket with the same hole in the bottom. You upgraded from 5 gallons to 10 gallons and then immediately bought more stuff to fill it. So let's say lifestyle inflation absorbs 60% of your after-tax raise. Your $17,500 just became $7,000. Now, factor in the promotion requiring a return to office. That's $4,000 to $12,000 a year in commuting, lunches, work clothes, and dry cleaning you weren't spending before. Factor in the healthcare costs that research shows are 50% higher for high stress workers, and suddenly that $30,000 promotion raise is netting you somewhere between $1,000 and $5,000 per year in genuine investable savings. $5,000, that's what's left after taxes, lifestyle, and the cost of physically showing up to the job. You gave them more of your life. They gave you a title and a coffee budget, and that's before we count the hours. Here's a calculation I genuinely cannot believe more people don't do before accepting a promotion. It's called your effective hourly rate, and it's the most honest number in your financial life. Take a VP earning $130,000 a year. Sounds great. Now take the senior individual contributor who said no to that role and stayed at $90,000. This also sounds fine. Now, divide by actual hours worked, because this is where it gets uncomfortable. Research from NFI shows 58% of senior managers and executives work 51 or more hours per week. Harvard Business School tracked 27 CEOs across a full year, 60,000 hours of data, and found they averaged 62.5 hours weekly, including nearly 4 hours on weekend days and 2.4 hours while on vacation, which isn't really vacation anymore. That's just working in a nicer shirt. Let's be conservative. The VP works 55 hours a week. At $130,000 a year, $2,500 per week, that's $45.45 per hour. The IC at $90,000 working a clean 40 hours earns $43.27 per hour. The gap between them is $2.18 per hour. $2.18. That is your promotion premium on a per hour basis once the real math runs. Now here's the part that will make you genuinely angry. Under the Fair Labor Standards Act, once you become a salaried exempt employee, which is every manager and executive earning above $43,888, you are no longer entitled to overtime pay. Zero. The VP working 55 hours a week is putting in 780 hours of unpaid labor every single year. That's 19 and a half full work weeks for free, given back to the company with a smile and a LinkedIn update about loving challenges. The company didn't give you a raise, they bought a very steep discount on a very large amount of your life. Becoming a salaried manager is, financially speaking, a bit like agreeing to an all-you-can-eat buffet where it turns out the restaurant can also eat you. The optics are great, the math is grim. So the extra hours aren't making you more successful. They're just making you more tired for free on behalf of shareholders who will lay you off the moment a spreadsheet tells them to. Here's the part of this equation that nobody puts in the job description. What could you actually build with those 15 to 20 hours per week you just signed over? Not a unicorn startup, not a cryptocurrency play, something boring and sustainable. Freelancing in your field, a small consulting practice, content, e-commerce. The average American side hustler earns $885 to $1,215 per month. Among those who put real effort in, 35% earn over $1,000 monthly. Let's say you build something modest, $2,000 per month. You put it into the S&P 500 at its historical average of around 10% annually. After 10 years, you have $407,000. After 20 years, you have $1.375 million. That is the opportunity cost of those 20 weekly hours, $1.375 million built in the time the VP was presenting slide decks that could have been emails. The IC who kept her 40-hour week and her side income isn't earning less than the VP. She's building more. She just can't see it on a business card. Let me show you what this actually looks like in a real person's life. At 38, on a Tuesday, Blake took every promotion. He's a director now, earning $145,000. It sounds like he won. It is 6:52 p.m. on a Tuesday, and Blake is still at the office because there's a reorg happening and his skip level wants a slide deck ready for Thursday, and he has a one-on-one with a direct report who's struggling, and there are 47 unread Slack messages from today alone. He'll be home by 8:30. His kids will be asleep. He'll eat whatever's in the fridge standing over the sink, check his email one more time, and set an alarm for 6:15. His $520,000 mortgage requires he stay exactly where he is. His 2 car payments, $1,600 a month combined, require he stay exactly where he is. The private school tuition, because that's just what you do at this income level, requires he stay exactly where he is. His 401k has $87,000 in it, which sounds okay until you realize he's 38 and needs roughly $1.5 million to retire. There's never much left to invest after the mortgage and the cars and the school and the life that quietly assembled itself around his salary. He has told himself that the equity in his house is his retirement plan, which is, financially speaking, the equivalent of saying your lottery tickets are your investment portfolio. Optimistic. Like loosely math adjacent. Unlikely to end well. On the same Tuesday, Jordan is making dinner. She said no to the last 2 promotions. Her manager at the time looked at her like she declined a winning lottery ticket. Her parents asked if everything was okay. Everything was fine. Jordan is 38, earning $98,000 fully remote, and she is making pasta at 6:15 p.m. like a person who controls her own schedule. Her 401k has $212,000 in it because she's been maxing it for 7 years. The years when Blake was getting promoted and spending the raise before it arrived. She has $34,000 in a taxable brokerage account. She started a small consulting practice on the side 2 years ago, charging for the expertise her day job pays her to give away for free, and it now generates $2,400 a month that she mostly invests. She took a trip to Japan last year. She reads books that aren't about management. She genuinely cannot locate the specific things she's supposed to be stressed about. Blake makes $47,000 more per year. He has $125,000 less in investable assets. He works 18 more hours every week, none of which are compensated. And those numbers will only get further apart as compound interest does what it always does. Reward the person who started earlier and kept going, not the person with the better title. Here's something nobody in your company has any incentive to tell you, so I will. The promotion system was not designed to make you wealthy. It was designed to make the company productive. And it's been engineered over decades to make those 2 things feel like the same thing, while they quietly aren't. There's a concept in labor economics called tournament theory. It describes your workplace as an elimination tournament. Think American Idol, but for office workers and with much worse prizes. The VP role, the director title, the corner office, these aren't just compensation. They're the carrot that extracts maximum effort from every single participant, including the 94 to 96% who will never reach them. Most of the players fund the prize pool with their evenings and weekends and never win anything. Only 4 to 6% of employees get promoted in a given year. In Q1 of 2024, tracking 68 million white-collar workers, ADP found just 1.3% were promoted, the lowest first quarter rate in 5 years. The game has gotten harder to win right as companies have gotten better at making you want to play. And it's getting more brazen. In 2023, 37% of U.S. employers gave out what the industry politely calls dry promotions, a new title with no pay increase. Congratulations on your promotion to Senior Associate Director of Responsibilities you had last quarter. We'll discuss the raise at your next review. Maybe. The percentage of companies doing this jumped from 8% in 2018 to 13% in 2024. The part that should genuinely bother you: a Korn Ferry survey found that 63% of employees would prefer a promotion without a raise over a raise without a promotion. 63% would take the title over the money. Companies read that data and they act on it. They have discovered that they can pay you in status symbols and you will thank them for it. Since 1979, worker productivity has grown 3.5 times faster than typical worker pay. Someone is capturing the value being created. It is not the person who just got a new email signature. Here's where it gets quietly dangerous in a way that goes beyond the salary math. When you spend years building your identity around a job title, you stop being a person who has a job and become a job that has a person. The distinction sounds philosophical until the day your company announces a restructuring and it stops being philosophical immediately. Researchers at the University of Michigan found that job loss functions psychologically closer to the loss of a close relationship than the loss of a paycheck, because people who climbed hard didn't just lose income, they lost the answer to "who am I?" Stanford economists found that workers laid off during a recession experience roughly a 20% decline in the net present value of their lifetime earnings that doesn't fully recover even 10 to 20 years later. The financial scarring is permanent. The identity scarring tends to be worse. Here's why this matters right now. Middle management positions accounted for 31% of all layoffs in 2023, up from 20% in 2018. Google cut thousands of managers. Amazon publicly announced plans to increase the IC to manager ratio by at least 15%. The people being laid off weren't the underperformers. They were the climbers, the ones who built a life requiring $145,000 just to stay above water, who've been out of the technical weeds for 6 years, who have $87,000 in retirement savings at 38. When the IC gets laid off, she has sharp skills, a side income, lean finances, and options. When the VP gets laid off, he has a mortgage that requires his old salary, a resume that lists titles instead of capabilities, and a very complicated Tuesday coming. Great Place to Work analyzed 1.7 million employee surveys and found that golden handcuffs was the single most common phrase burned out employees used to describe what kept them at their job. Not what they loved, what they couldn't afford to leave. 64% of Americans say they would quit their job tomorrow if they didn't need the paycheck. The system isn't just extracting their labor, it's made them financially unable to say no to extracting it. That's not a career. That's a very comfortable trap with good dental. Now, let's talk about what the research actually says about income and happiness, because this is where the math lands somewhere most people genuinely don't expect. A landmark collaboration between Nobel Prize-winning researcher Daniel Kahneman and Matthew Killingsworth, two scientists who publicly disagreed on this question and then ran a joint study to settle it, found something more nuanced than either expected. For most people, happiness rises with income, but with serious diminishing returns past $100,000. The jumps get smaller fast. For the unhappiest 15 to 20% of people, those dealing with depression, grief, clinical anxiety, well-being plateaus around $100,000 and doesn't move no matter how much more they earn. Money cannot fix those things. It can make them more comfortable. It cannot make them better. Meanwhile, an Empower survey found that Americans believe they need $284,167 per year to be happy. Millennials estimated $525,947. The research says the real threshold is somewhere between $100,000 and $200,000 for most people. We are overestimating the income we need to feel okay by a factor of 2 to 5. And then destroying our weekends chasing the difference. Here's the finding that actually broke my brain. Vanguard studied 12,443 investors and found that having just $2,000 in emergency savings improved financial well-being by 21%. Having $500,000 in income improved it by only 12%. Having over $1 million in assets improved it by 18%. The single strongest predictor of feeling financially okay was not your salary. It was a $2,000 emergency fund. Security, the feeling that one bad week won't destroy you, beats income every single time. And the person with the lower title and the leaner, better built finances, she has that. The person who chased the promotions and spent every raise before it arrived, he doesn't. So what does it actually look like to say no on purpose? More people are doing it than you think. A Vizier survey of 1,000 full-time employees found that 62% of individual contributors actively prefer staying where they are rather than moving into management. Their top priorities, 67% said time with family, 64% said physical and mental health, 58% said traveling, barely 4% said reaching the C-suite. The people living inside the promotion tournament are looking at the prize and quietly declining. And here's the career finding that reframes the whole ladder metaphor. In a study published in Management Science found that workers who move laterally in sideways across functions or companies rather than straight up experience higher subsequent wage growth and are more likely to reach senior leadership eventually than people who climbed vertically in a single track. The person who said no to the manager role took a lateral move into a different function and built broad expertise across the company doesn't fall behind. They end up a decade later better positioned and better paid than the person who accepted every rung. The ladder isn't even the fastest way up. It's just the most obvious one. Now, not every promotion is a trap. If it comes with real equity at a company where that equity might actually be worth something, take it. Equity can represent 33% or more of total compensation and dwarf any salary differential. If it genuinely takes you from financial stress to financial stability, take it. But if it means 15 extra unpaid hours per week, if it's a dry promotions, and 37% of them now are, if it kills the time you'd use to build something of your own, then the math is talking to you clearly in plain language, and the math doesn't care what the title looks like. On LinkedIn, nobody in that building has any incentive to show you these numbers. The company makes money when you say yes. It makes more money when your salary makes you unable to leave. So they don't show you the math. They show you the title. Remember that person I asked you to picture at the start of this video, the most ambitious person you know. The one who said yes to everything and is home at 7:45 p.m., eating, standing over the sink, wondering where the day went. Here's what the math says their alternative looks like. The first time you say no to a promotion, it feels like you're falling behind. Your colleagues look at you sideways. Your parents ask careful questions. The ambitious person you've always been sends you low-grade panic signals for about 6 weeks. Your brain, trained since childhood to read title as success and success as worth, does not enjoy this. And then something shifts. The hours you're not spending in management meetings start turning into something. The retirement account you're actually funding starts compounding. The side income you built in the margins starts generating real money. Sunday nights stop arriving with that tightness in the chest. And 5 years later, not 10, not 20, 5, you look at the person who said yes to everything and you see it clearly. Their salary is bigger on paper. Their life is considerably smaller in practice. The person who never stopped chasing the next title will spend the next decade running towards something that keeps moving just out of reach. You'll have spent that decade building something that actually belongs to you, that no reorg can eliminate, no skip level can restructure away. No company can decide doesn't fit the new strategy. That is what changes when you start saying no. Not your title, not your salary, your leverage, your options, your actual practical, run the real math financial freedom. Go home at 5, invest the difference, and let compounding do what your company never will. Work on your behalf. If this math changed how you think about the climb, hit subscribe and drop a comment. Have you ever turned down a promotion? I want to know what happened.